The Pentagon tour guide stopped in front of the Wall of Heroes, her voice carrying the practiced reverence of someone who'd told these stories 1,000 times, but still felt their weight. This section honors our most decorated officers from the past 2 decades of conflict, she announced to the group of veterans and their families. Each name here represents extraordinary valor under fire. I watched from the back hallway, hidden behind a pillar, as my father moved closer to read the plaques. He'd come for his Vietnam War unit reunion, dragging Mom along for the official Pentagon tour. He had no idea I was stationed here now, no idea I was watching. Here we have Colonel Sarah Blackwood, the guide continued, gesturing to a prominent display. Silver star with Valor device, purple heart with 2 oak leaf clusters, bronze star with Valor device, and 3 Army Commendation medals with Valor devices. She's something of a legend around here. My father froze. I saw his hand reach out to steady himself against the wall. Colonel Blackwood led the rescue of 37 soldiers trapped behind enemy lines in Kandahar, the guide explained. Despite being wounded twice, she personally carried 4 soldiers to the extraction point under heavy fire. She later returned to active combat after recovering from injuries that would have ended most careers. That's... My father's voice cracked. That's my daughter's name. The guide smiled. You're Colonel Blackwood's father? Sir, you must be incredibly proud. She's one of the most respected combat leaders in the Army. We use her tactics in training scenarios at West Point. I stepped back further into the shadows as my father's legs gave out. Another veteran caught his arm, helped him to a bench. His face had gone gray, his hands shaking as he stared at my name etched in marble and bronze. Too soft for combat, he'd said. Those words had echoed in my head through every firefight, every mission, every moment I'd proved him wrong. Time to face him. Growing up as General Michael Blackwood's daughter meant growing up in the shadow of impossible standards. My father was Special Forces in Vietnam, later commanding troops in Grenada and Panama. He was carved from granite, spoke in command voice even at dinner, and believed strength could only be measured in physical dominance. I was none of what he expected. Where he was loud, I was quiet. Where he was imposing, I was small. Where he solved problems with force, I preferred thinking them through. To him, these weren't different strengths, they were weaknesses. Sarah's too sensitive. He'd tell my mother when I cried over injured birds or spent hours reading instead of playing sports. The world's going to eat her alive. He tried to toughen me up. Forced marches when I was 10. Obstacle courses in the backyard. Push-up competitions with my brothers that I always lost. When I preferred chess club to basketball, he signed me up for boxing lessons. When I quit after a week, he threw his hands up in disgust. You're too soft for this world, Sarah, became his refrain. Too soft for anything that matters. The day I told him I'd been accepted to West Point, he laughed. Actually laughed, harsh and dismissive. You? In the Army? Sarah, you can't even watch war movies without covering your eyes. You think combat is some intellectual exercise you can solve with feelings and philosophy. I'm going, I said quietly. You'll wash out in a month. First time a drill sergeant yells, you'll cry. First time you have to low-crawl through mud, you'll quit. You're not built for this. We'll see. He didn't come to my basic training graduation. Didn't come when I graduated West Point in the top 10%. When I branched infantry, one of the first women to do so, he sent a 2-word text. Good luck. What he never understood was that being soft didn't mean being weak. It meant I saw things others missed. Felt currents others ignored. In Afghanistan, while other lieutenants relied on aggression and firepower, I built relationships with village elders. While they kicked down doors, I learned Pashto and drank tea with families. Blackwood's too soft on the locals, my first platoon sergeant had said, until my network of relationships provided intel that prevented an ambush. Until the village kids who trusted me warned us about IEDs. Until being soft saved lives. But I was also harder than anyone knew. When our convoy was hit outside Kandahar and I took shrapnel to my shoulder and leg, I didn't cry. When I dragged Specialist Martinez 200 meters to cover while bleeding through my uniform, I didn't stop. When the medic said I'd earned a ticket home, I refused evacuation until every one of my soldiers was accounted for. Too soft for combat, my father had said. But he'd never seen me hold a dying soldier's hand while calling in a medevac under fire. Never seen me make the choice between 2 wounded men when I could only carry one. Never seen me write letters to mothers about their sons who weren't coming home. Soft. Maybe. But soft like water that carves through rock. soft like silk that stops bullets. The Kandahar mission that earned my Silver Star wasn't supposed to be anything special. A routine patrol to check on a school we'd helped rebuild. But intel failures and enemy preparation turned it into a nightmare. 37 soldiers from mixed units were pinned down in a compound, surrounded, running low on ammunition. Air support was grounded by weather. Quick reaction forces were 40 minutes out. The tactical situation was impossible. I was at the forward operating base when the distress calls started. As the senior officer present, the decision fell to me. Every conventional assessment said the same thing. Wait for proper reinforcement. Attempting a rescue with the small force available was suicide. But I could hear them on the radio. Kids really. Scared, desperate, trying to sound brave. One of them, Private Chun, was from my first platoon. 19 years old, still sent half his paycheck home to help his immigrant parents. "Ma'am," my operations sergeant said carefully, "we can't get there in time with what we have." "Then we get creative," I replied, already running scenarios. What followed was what the after-action report called unconventional tactical brilliance, and what I called desperate improvisation. Using local vehicles to appear non-military. Coordinating with Afghan police I'd built relationships with. Creating diversions using smoke and speakers broadcasting false unit movements. But the real test came when we reached the compound. Half the trapped soldiers were wounded. Enemy fire was constant. Every conventional rescue attempt had been repelled. So I did something soft. I had our interpreter broadcast a message in Pashto, not threatening but appealing to honor. Reminded them that attacking a school violated their own codes. That wounded soldiers were no threat. That showing mercy would be remembered. It bought us 10 minutes of confused, reduced fire. 10 minutes to breach the compound and start evacuations. That's when everything went wrong. Enemy reinforcements arrived. The fragile ceasefire shattered. And I found myself doing things my father would never have imagined his too soft daughter capable of. When Private Chin was hit and couldn't walk, I carried him. When Sergeant Willis was trapped under debris, I lifted rubble I shouldn't have been able to move. When we ran out of ammunition, I used my rifle as a club. When 4 soldiers couldn't make it to the extraction point, I made 4 trips to get them, each time through increasing fire. The second Purple Heart came when a grenade landed near wounded soldiers. No time to think, just react. I kicked it away, but not far enough. Shrapnel tore through my side and back. I kept moving. The third came from a sniper's bullet that punched through my shoulder as I carried the last soldier to safety. I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Too soft meant I felt every ounce of their fear and pain as my own. Too soft meant I couldn't leave anyone behind. 37 soldiers made it out alive. The citation for the Silver Star used words like extraordinary heroism and complete disregard for personal safety. What it should have said was too soft to let them die. Recovery took months. The shrapnel had done damage that required multiple surgeries. The medical board recommended medical retirement. I refused. Too soft apparently included being too stubborn to quit. I returned to a different army than I'd left. Word of Kandahar had spread. Soldiers who'd once questioned whether women belonged in combat now specifically requested to serve in my unit. My unconventional tactics became part of curriculum at the infantry school. The relationships I'd built with locals, once mocked as being too soft, became the model for counterinsurgency operations. But I never told my father. When he'd call on holidays and ask how I was doing, I'd say fine. When he'd make jokes about his daughter who plays soldier, I'd change the subject. When he'd compare me to my brothers, one a lawyer, one an engineer, as examples of choosing careers that fit their strengths, I'd bite my tongue. Because what was the point? He'd decided who I was the day I cried over a dead butterfly at age 5. Every year that passed just calcified his certainty that I was too gentle, too emotional, too soft for anything that mattered. Now, standing in that Pentagon hallway, watching him process the truth on the wall of heroes, I had a choice. I could walk away, let him sit with the cognitive dissonance. Or I could face him, finally, as the soldier I'd become. I stepped out from behind the pillar, my uniform immaculate, ribbons perfectly aligned. The tour group noticed me first. Soldiers always recognize a combat veteran's bearing. A few actually stepped back, recognizing either my rank or my face from Army Times articles. Colonel Blackwood. The tour guide's voice pitched up with excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Colonel Sarah Blackwood herself." My father's head snapped up. Our eyes met across 20 feet of polished floor and 25 years of misunderstanding. I walked forward, each step measured. The crowd parted. Someone actually started to clap before thinking better of it. This wasn't that kind of moment. I stopped in front of my father. He looked older than I remembered, smaller somehow. Or maybe I just stood taller now. "Hello, Dad." He tried to speak, failed, tried again. "Sarah?" "Colonel Blackwood," I corrected gently. "In this building, I'm Colonel Blackwood." His eyes traveled over my uniform, catching on the ribbons, the combat infantry badge, the ranger tab, the master parachutist wings. Each one representing something he'd said I couldn't do. "I don't." He gestured helplessly at the wall. "Kandahar? You were in Kandahar?" 4 tours in Afghanistan. 2 in Iraq. But you never said. You never asked, Dad. You told me I was too soft for combat, and then never asked what I actually did. So I stopped trying to tell you. The tour group had backed away, giving us space. My mother stood frozen, one hand over her mouth. I'd kept the secret from her too, unable to bear her being caught between us. 37 soldiers, my father whispered, reading the citation again. Wounded 3 times. Carried 4 men. He looked back at me. How? Because I was too soft to leave them, I said simply. Too emotional to accept casualties. Too sensitive to write letters to their families. Everything you said was weakness? It made me fight harder than anyone thought possible. He sank back onto the bench, head in his hands. I called you soft. Yes. Said you'd wash out. Yes. Said you weren't built for this. Yes. He looked up, tears streaming down his face. My father, who'd never cried, never shown weakness, never bent, was breaking in front of me. I was wrong, he whispered. God, Sarah, I was so wrong. I sat beside him, careful not to touch. We'd never been a hugging family. You weren't entirely wrong. I am soft, Dad. I do feel too much. I do care too deeply. But that's not weakness. It's my strength. I fight because I can't stand seeing others hurt. I lead because I feel my soldiers' fear and pain. I survive because I'm too soft to let their families suffer loss. The guide called you a legend. Labels don't matter. What matters is that 37 families didn't get folded flags because I was too soft to let that happen. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, your Purple Hearts. You were wounded 3 times. I nodded. How bad? Bad enough. Show me. I hesitated, then stood and removed my jacket. Through my shirt, the scars were visible, a map of shrapnel patterns across my back and side. The sniper's exit wound on my shoulder. The burn marks from the grenade. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. My father stood slowly, reached out as if to touch the scars, then pulled back. My little girl, he breathed. My baby girl who cried over butterflies. Still cries over butterflies, I admitted, putting my jacket back on. Cried over every soldier I lost. Cried writing citations for bravery. Cried visiting wounded troops. The difference is, now I know crying doesn't make me weak. It makes me human. And humans fight harder than machines. How can you forgive me? He asked. All those years, all those words. Because holding on to anger is weight I can't carry in combat, I said. Because you're my father, and being too soft means I never stopped loving you even when you disappointed me. Because forgiveness is just another form of strength you never taught me about. The tour group had long since moved on, but we sat there in front of my name on the wall. 3 people, a family broken by misunderstanding, held together by blood, maybe healing through truth. What happens now? My father asked. Now I go back to work. I have a battalion to command, soldiers to train, missions to plan. Still in combat? When needed. I ship out next month. He flinched. I'll worry. Good. Worry means you finally see me as a soldier. No, he said firmly. I see you as a warrior. My daughter, the warrior, who's too soft to lose and too strong to break. I stood, straightened my uniform. I have a meeting with the Joint Chiefs in 20 minutes. The Joint Chiefs. His eyes widened. They want my input on the new combat integration protocols. Turns out being too soft gives me perspective they need. As I walked away, I heard him call out, Sarah? I turned. Could we have dinner? Before you deploy? I'd like to hear about all of it. Everything I missed. Everything I was too stubborn to see. I considered it. 25 years of dismissal against 1 moment of recognition. A lifetime of too soft against a single acknowledgement of strength. I know a place that serves good Afghan food. I said finally. Learn to love it overseas. Too spicy for most people, but not for a warrior, he finished. Not for my daughter. I smiled, the first real smile I'd given him in decades. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. I run on military time now. As I walked toward my meeting, I passed other walls of heroes, other names and stories. But I didn't stop to read them. I knew their stories, had lived them, bled with them, carried them when they fell. Too soft for combat? Maybe. But soft like water that shapes stone. Soft like silk that catches bullets. Soft like the hand that holds a dying soldier while calling in fire support with the other. My name was on the wall because I was everything my father said I couldn't be, not despite being soft, but because of it. And now, finally, he understood. Soft hands. Steel spine. Unbreakable spirit. That's what too soft for combat